Right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Again, welcome to the 5D Global Consciousness Raising event. I'm Laurie McDonald. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist in Sacramento. I also run one of the largest experiencers group. I work with people who have face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact with extraterrestrials, either positive or negative. I have people who are actual just contactees. Quite privileged, I believe, to work with a man by the name of George Labono. He wrote a book called The Alien Mind. He and I are very good friends now because we both have a hobby, which is doing the psychological profiling of extraterrestrials. They know a lot about us. They know all the buttons to push. They know every bit of brain secretion to allow us to become compliant, to completely manipulate us. But we are empowered beings. As I said last night, a human, Hu is an ancient Egyptian word for light. We use that word today to measure different intensities of light. Man is short for manifestation. It means to come into the physical. A human is a light embodied being. So when you're in school, you are told, human race, humankind. We assume that we knew the definition, that it meant gender, human man or woman, or perhaps even race. But in fact, it's just a description of what we are. We are light-embodied beings, and anything else actually limits our thought process and what we can and cannot do. So today, a little feedback there, I don't know what to do about it. No. Okay. All right, so I'm going to talk today about understanding thought. I spend a lot of time thinking. I've been a meditator for 35 years. When I was young, in about 28 or so, I had a dream. And I dreamed I was in this Buddhist temple. There were all these monks around. They're all female. And that morning when I woke up, I got in my car and I drove aimlessly outside of Sacramento. Sure enough, I came upon the temple I dreamed about. I walked up to the gates and there were two female monks standing there, and they said, "How did you know about us?" I said, "I dreamed you." So they opened the gates and I came through, and for all of these years later, we're on our second master. I've been able to have this amazing relationship. I'd already meditated for years before I went to the temple, but they taught me how to control my mind. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not controlling your own mind, if you don't know how to control your own thoughts, there's a very good chance somebody else will do that for you through a number of different ways, and I'll list them off later for you. Everything from advertising to psychotronics or radionics, mind manipulation and mind control. So I'm going to talk about the universal laws of likes attract likes, because that happens in our thought processes. There are certain thoughts that live in the third dimension, and there are other thoughts that live in the fourth and fifth dimension. Higher thinking, higher thoughts resonate in the fifth dimension. Unconditional love actually only exists in fifth dimension. If your mind is moving into that area, or your body as well, that's where unconditional love exists. We're not capable of that here yet. We have too many attachments, too many conditions, too many contracts on what we're going to do and not do. I'm going to talk about how your experiences shape your reality. What is reality? Awareness. And then, of course, ultimately, what we all seek is a consciousness expansion. So the steps in getting there are understanding reality first. So with that, consciousness, wow. It's totally a loaded word. We hear it all the time, consciousness and shifting and awakening, and there's all of these words associated with something that's about to transpire on our planet. But consciousness being a loaded word, we have to understand we're living in a time that we are on the edge of change. This is a monumental time in history. Each and every time this cycle has come about, roughly 26 to 30,000 years, depending on which calendar you use. It's really not important. The stars will tell us where we're at. They're a clock, in a way. The point is that we're in the third dimension. And the key word that I mentioned earlier is actually time. Time in the third dimension is fixed. We cannot go backwards. We cannot go forward. Time is fixed. We measure it by height, width, depth. But there's a consciousness that exists in the third dimension. But we're limited by it, by our own belief system. So when I say fixed time, I'm going to show you how you can change time right now in your mind. If I were to ask everyone here to imagine, visualize, conjure, maybe the happiest, most loving time in your life, just give yourself a second to remember. It's easy for me. I've been so happy so much. You can't help but smile as you remember a happy time. And I really hope y'all don't have to try too hard to conjure that image. But that's a memory. When you move into it, you could be ignited by smell. I remember the smell of my grandmother's house. Wow, takes me right back there every time. Because the mind allows us to move through time. The body on earth we use to interpret our environment with our senses. Tactile, as we touch. Our olfactory sense as we smell. All of these things, what we see, of course, but most importantly, what we perceive, what we feel. In the third dimension, we're told that we're born with a set of only 5 senses, and I tell you that's not so. That was your first limited conditioning. We are born with multiple senses, but if we don't know, we're not using them. People do have a 6th sense. It's called intuition. We feel things all the time, but if you don't trust it enough on a daily basis, you're not going to be able to recognize it. You learn to recognize the signs in your body first through relaxation. This is a truth. The mind controls the body obeys. That's a fact. We do that in conjunction with our brain, of course. So where's consciousness? Is it in our brain? Is it in our mind? The brain is actually an organ. Its job is to help our glands secrete fluids, our lungs to breathe. It acts as a computer to input information. These are all things in the body. But remember, I told you, we're light that lives in the body, a human. We are light embodied. So we're just like in this vehicle. Look at it like a genie in the bottle. Once the body falls, we still exist. And I'm going to tell you that. I know this to be true because it happened to me. I have been out of my body many a times. In fact, that's why I sought out a relationship with the Master, because during my meditations, I kept popping out of my body. And I know people want to do that all the time, but that was not my goal. And so I went to the Master and said, I keep coming out of my body. And I see it right there. I can walk away from it. I can see it from whatever view I want. Aerial, 360-degree view. I said, what's happening? And the Master said that lots of humans who are on a path of enlightenment or evolution, whichever you're more comfortable with, find that they'll start to pop out of their body. Maybe it's happened to you. You wake up and you're just hovering above your bed. Or maybe you're deeply relaxed in the bathtub and you start to come out. It doesn't matter, but it's through that source of relaxation that we begin to really manipulate the energy that lives inside of us. That is us. That is our essence. I'm not my body, and I'm not my face. I'm not my job. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, but I'm not those things. Those things are circumstances of my life. So we have to learn how to differentiate between what we are and what happens to us. I work, as you know, as a clinical hypnotherapist, but I also do pro bono work. I work at the Sacramento AIDS Alliance. I work in a residential program with people who are dying of AIDS and HIV. And I think the most profound thing that I ever told them was what I just told you. You're not your circumstances. Your circumstances are you have AIDS, but you're not AIDS. And when you can break that off of the things that affect your life, you don't have to buy into that energy. You just deal with it circumstantially. And these are the tools to understanding how to first control our thoughts. So our thoughts have power. In fact, they're measurable in ergs. When a thought emission leaves our mind, we can measure that. That's how we know which thoughts transcend third, fourth, and fifth dimensional consciousness thinking. But we're trapped in this third dimension, almost like a time loop. We continue to make the same mistakes. I'll tell you, if you read ancient history or any bibliography report of how we were, you'll see that we're exactly the same. People's issues, people's struggle to survive, to have a home, to feed their children, to seek education, the pettiness of war has been non-stop on our planet for a couple of millennium. This is a distraction. I myself would rather give birth to a son, not a soldier. But when we are imprisoned by a government that's looking to seek power, they want us to feed into their power sources and create their reality, not our reality, because the reality of a human being is to tap into your human potential to allow yourself to unfold. Time in the third dimension is slower on purpose. The reason is so that we can check in with our consciousness. It's basically the laws of karma. It's cause and effect. We become conscious of our actions in the third dimension, and we have time to self-correct. We have time to self-correct. There's a process called stop thought, that as soon as you find yourself going down the rabbit hole of self-defeating thoughts that are negative, I can't do this, I can't do that, all that inner dialogue, all that inner chatter that stops you from being who you are, those are the enemy of the mind. You can stop thought that in its tracks and allow the true thoughts to come through, because if you're feeling any of those things, they're not true. They're not your authentic self. What they are reflections of your fear, your self-doubt, perhaps your insecurity. And where did those come from? Our programming. We're absolutely programmed to fail. And I'm going to tell you, break the program, see it, know you're far better than anybody ever let us know, that we're absolutely magnificent beings capable of much creation. But in the third dimension, we don't know this. And so we make all of these mistakes, and they called them sin. In fact, the word sin, the true definition, our minds, if you have any religious background as a child at all, it means that you did something really bad and you're probably going to get singed or burned for it or have to repent on some level. The word means to miss the mark. It means you didn't get it right the first time. It's not bad. It's a fact. You don't punish for sin. You teach a person how to do better. When my children were learning to walk and they fell, they missed the mark. I allowed them and showed them how you get back up and learn to walk. There is no sin. It's not evil. These are places where we simply make a mistake. We've missed the mark, and we have an opportunity to learn and do better. That's why time is slower in the third dimension, so that we can right now self-correct. Each cycle that's gone about, these 26,000 or 30,000 year cycles, we haven't got it right. I'm going to say our time is now to get it right. We have to fight back with the mind. Thoughts that leave our mind go somewhere, and they have mass accumulation because they have a mass. As I said in my lecture the other night, we all can tell When you walk into a room and the tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife, those are lingering thoughts. You can feel them. You can perceive thoughts. Thoughts have power. Thoughts have actual energy. I don't know where I did with my glasses. Back pocket, thank you so much. Anyone who knows me, I do this all the time because I don't know where they go. And I'm not used to not being able to see without them. How did that happen? So we're about to experience a shift in our reality, what we think and experience in the world. And I'm going to tell you, in order to get to a consciousness expansion, you have to understand reality. In our reality, right now, there are many beings, multidimensional, interdimensional, extraterrestrial, celestial, and subterranean beings that exist, each encompassing their own consciousness. Our mind can communicate with any one of those levels of consciousness, although I say to you, do not engage in any energy that is lower than ours, and that would be the whole entire gray reptilian alignment. It's a lower energy than ours. Technically, they think they're more advanced, but spiritually, consciously, they have none. Sorry? Right, they don't have a soul, that's right. And at any time, anybody has a question, or I'm not clear, or you want to comment, do it. It's all good. Please. What are the grays? There are 22.2 subspecies of gray alien. Some of them are bot-like, robotic. The Roswell Greys were called dollies because they said that they were a consciousness that encompassed a body that was limited in its ability. It was a body that was given to their consciousness to move through different states of time. In my opinion, the gray aliens are a lower entity that is self-serving. They've tried to create a hybridization program and attach to the human so that they could create a hybrid only so that they could hopefully gain a spiritual consciousness for their own transcendence. They lack that ability to do it. Now, the tall grays, they're different. They're more of a sentient being. They rule the lower grays. This is called the Tao. The Tao is the alignment. There are 5 different species that align with this Tao. And I've spent years doing psychological profiling, so for each and every one of those extraterrestrials, when you find yourself face-to-face with eye-to-eye contact with them, we'll have a little insight. We'll know how to react because right now we can't even control our own minds. We're either going to be fear-based or we will become, they say in psychology that it's the fight or flight mechanism. I'd like to add another F word to that. It's not a bad one. It's freeze. I find that people, it's no longer just fight or flight. They're frozen. They're stuck. They're stuck in their minds. They're stuck in their lives. They think they should have a better life. They think they should be more successful. They think things should be a little bit easier. Why aren't they? Why are we stuck? We're stuck on purpose because they want us to be stuck. I'm going to show you how to get unstuck. And that's breaking the program of the third dimensional thought, because in each consciousness, there is a lower, a middle, and a higher. Just like there's a middle earth, a lower earth, a higher earth. Earth is a garden planet in a series of garden planets. We're in our infantile state with this aspect. But the taller grays that oversee the lower ones all have the same agenda, which is to manipulate, drain the power, and steal, infiltrate the human body, hoping that they can create a hybrid that will maintain a consciousness. Hybrids are very psychic, and so should we be. They're quite adept at telepathic communication. When I was a little girl, my dad used to play games with us. He would put me and my sister in the kitchen, and he would go in the living room, and he'd take out a pen and paper, and he would draw. And he would say, just don't think. Just feel. What did I draw? I was like 90% right all the time, the 10% that I was off because I didn't want to play anymore. I want to go outside and play. But my sister never did get it. So she would end up in the room with my dad, and they would both be drawing, and they would try to see if we could get it. Now, I already told you I'm a grandmother. My children are 35 years old and 28, and I have beautiful granddaughters. And when my son was 6 years old, I used to play a little game with them. Don't know where I got that from. And I would put his favorite action figure, it was like some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle thing, under a cup. I had 3 of them. Mix them about and say, Ryan, tell me where it is, honey, but don't guess. Don't try to remember. Feel. It's your toy. You play with it all the time. Think about it. Think about it. See it. Feel it. Boom. He would get it every time. So I'm sitting out on the front lawn and I'm doing this, trying to teach him to use his body. Because, like I said earlier, the body is an antenna for interpreting our environment through our senses. Again, the most important senses is the one that we feel and sense. It's the one that gets the least amount of attention. That's the one we want to be focusing our attention on. So I'm doing this, and out of nowhere, a huge white owl, and if you're all familiar with ufology, you know that we get the owl coming as a screen memory. Except that I was sitting on the front lawn in broad daylight, and a big white owl came and perched halfway down the middle of a palm tree on one of the fronds that had been cut off. And it stayed with us for the next 4 years. I was a ufologist at the time. I was doing field research, and I would go out and set the cameras up and everything 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then go back throughout the night. And I'd go, the owl would come with me. It would circle the car. I would drive to the grocery store. The owl would follow me and circle the grocery store. All the neighbors knew about the owl. In fact, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the name by Mike Clellan. He writes owl stories. He's got that story that I'm telling you right now in his book. I didn't use my real name in his book because it's not just my story, it's my son's as well. It was our owl. And so I went under a different name. But the point is, this owl stayed with us for a number of years. I owned the house, and I rented it out and relocated to Santa Fe because I accepted a position at the Alchemical Hypnotherapy Institute of Santa Fe. I was an assistant teacher there. And I rented the house out, and within 5 days, the only time my owl didn't follow me, they called me and said, we just found a huge owl in the backyard, like a 6-foot wing spread, dead. And I was crushed, but I sensed that it was about to happen. And I had taken one of the long white feathers that I have to this day in my curio cabinet, only because it was a real owl. It wasn't anything. So I don't know what any of it means, except that we have this ability to tap into whatever we want, and all we have to do is try. All you have to do is believe, which the way you believe is, once again, eliminating the programming of the third dimension. So we'll get back to the third dimension for just a second. See where I'm at here. Did I answer your question on the grays? Yeah? Okay. So when I was saying that science, we call thought an erg. It is an electrical impulse that comes from pure energy, or we could call that zero-point energy if you're more familiar with that term. This energy can actually be manipulated by our inner mind, and we do that almost on a daily basis without realizing it. See, your thoughts are automatically sent out. Negative or positive current is propelled chemically based on your emotions. And your emotions, E in math is energy. Emotions are energy in motion. That's what your emotions are. They're mass amounts of energy with electrical impulses and urges that create a mass. This is a little scientific, but these are facts. Thoughts are energetic, can propel them almost anywhere. They create wavelengths. That's our mental plane. This is our reality. That we created it now. So when we create a reality, we create that based on our experiences, based on our feelings. And when we do that, we're doing it as a collective conscious. We're doing it based on everybody else's thoughts, which of course falls under the laws of likes attract likes in the universal laws. And if you caught Brett Luter's talk earlier, he talked about contracts and universal laws. They most definitely exist, and I'm going to tell you right now, the universe is organized. There is a protocol for everything. We have to understand the protocol. You know, as an experiencer group leader, I got people wanting to come to my group because they want to be abducted. I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, you've all seen the movies. Take me. What? Wrong. Okay? That is not the way we do this. When you open yourself up to that, you're drawing all of those other levels of consciousness that I talked about earlier. You have to be clear, specific, precise, and know what you're asking for. This is very important. Our third dimension, that time loop of trapped thought, continuously pushes us down and feeds us. When I said earlier that we're moving into the fourth dimension, and that the third dimension gives us the opportunity through time to see our actions. That's, like I said, called karma. By the time we hit the fourth dimension, this is dharma. Dharma is you're well aware of cause and effect. You're well aware of the ramifications. You understand what you've done, and you're trying to correct. In the fourth dimension, we have dharma. You figured it out, and you're now a teacher. You teach. Dharma simply means taking responsibility. So in karma, you might be climbing a mountain and pushing everything aside and struggling your way up and seeing, oh, if you push this rock, this happens. In dharma, you're climbing the mountain. You move the rocks for those behind you so they don't have to figure that part out. That's where we begin to move into the fourth dimensional thinking. With that, you have to have a pure heart. The heart energy is the strongest energy in the universe. And I know that thought travels at the speed of light, but our thought energy, or the heart energy, is far more powerful. So you have to do a few things. You cannot judge anybody based on their physical appearance, their race, or their religion. Because each and every time we do that, it's because we're insecure about something and we feel that we need to move ourselves into that position of being superior. That makes us self-serving. We don't want to be self-serving. We want to be altruistic. We want to be able to help and do the right thing. Self-serving entities, including humans, will be trapped in a lower astral thought process. So you move through that with love and dropping everything. So number one, you can't just go and say, I'm going to love everything, because most people don't even know how to love themselves. What breaks my heart the most in my business, I'm very empathetic, I'm very sensitive, and it kills me. I get women coming to me and they say, I hate my body. I'm so fat. I wish this wasn't. I'm like, shut up. You're talking to yourself. And you just said you hate your body. You're feeding yourself this. And plus, you are what you think you are, so you're going to stay fat. You just said it. I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat. Then that's exactly the way you're going to be. You say, I'm getting fitter. Stronger. Don't use the word lose weight. I want to lose weight. Lose is a negative. The subconscious mind knows that lose means not to win. You are set up to fail. Each and every time, that's not going to work. You take the positive, more approach where you are going to gain health. You're going to gain strength. You're going to gain, not weight. You're going to gain insight. So it's self-acceptance, the good, the bad, the ugly. Love it all. Embrace it all, because it's in all of us. We live on a planet of duality. All the garden planets are dualistic. We cannot have light, that does not cast a shadow. We can't have yin without yang. There's male, there's female, there's up, there's down. This is a planet of duality. So what we seek is balance. Self-acceptance, you accept every aspect of yourself, can love yourself, then you can begin to love others. Because you don't have to judge them. You don't have to look at anyone and go, I wish I was that, I wish I could do that. No. You can actually be happy for them and allow everybody to be. You have to learn how to live in the now, right now, being in the moment, because we can't control time. There's no past. It only lives in the mind. The future has not happened yet. It's merely a projection of our thoughts. The only thing that is for real right now is right now. So you own it. That's O-W-N. Now is N-O-W. You can do that. You've W-O-N, one. Because these three letters, living in the now, are going to teach you that this is what's important. Thoroughly believe that all healing of the mind and the body begins with relaxation. Self-acceptance, being at ease. When you're at ease, you don't have disease. That's a fact. When you're at ease, the electromagnetic energy of the body flows as it is supposed to. It doesn't get stopped. Every time I have a bad thought, energy stops. There's a block. The more we do it, the more we feed it. What we feed grows, good and bad. So all of the, yes? Own your stuff. Own your stuff. If you're looking at someone and judging or hating, own it, and then you've won.
And then, as you said, one, it occurred to me, also O-N-E.
That's right. Thank you. Very good. Yeah. Also, then we are one. Isn't that a fact? Because not any of us are made different. Didn't I already tell you what we are? We're hue. Manifested. Light. In whatever reflection that happens to be. So we have to have self-acceptance. Then we have self-love. When we have self-love, we begin to move into the fourth dimensional consciousness thinking. This is how you think to move in. There's no big magical cosmic curtain that's going to be unveiled and we've shifted and we're all in the fourth and fifth. No. It's here. Here. It's in the mind. I want to show you what the planet's going to look like in the third dimension. Well, hang on a second. Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. Can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. This is physics, because physics is energy. Know your thoughts. Good or bad. Positive thoughts, negative thoughts. I'm going to tell you right now, there are no negative thoughts. All these New Agers. Just think positive. Don't think negative. Just a minute here. I already told you it's a planet of duality. Negative exists. Everything has a purpose. A negative thought comes and starts to rise up in you. Don't push it back down, because we're creating a block. Next time that thought comes up, it'll be bigger. Allow it to come and go. Don't feed it. Don't give it any additional energy. As it's passing, allow it to reflect back at you as to what you can perceive about yourself. Maybe I'm feeling insecure. Maybe I want to be more like that person, so why aren't I accepting myself just the way I am, okay? So we have to catch those thoughts. Again, don't kick yourself and beat yourself up for them. Don't suppress them. Allow them to come and go. This creates balance. So in the fourth dimension, when we think something, it will manifest, so much faster than it does now. Because right now, we do manifest our reality. It just takes a lot longer, because time is very slow here. In the fourth dimension, it's moving a little bit quicker. We're not going to have yet perfected the ability to think this way, but we'll be making great strides. By fifth dimensional, I'm going to tell you what it looks like there. It's beyond beautiful. It's like a golden planet, a golden time, where there are, again, higher, middle, and lower fifth dimensional thoughts. But everybody's like a glow. You still have a personality. I said, hey, I'm still Laurie. Thought I was going to be somebody else, I don't know. Very inexperienced there. And I was shocked that I was still Laurie. And because I thought, I might have be somebody new now, somebody better. I didn't know. But I was still Laurie. And on this beautiful golden planet, there was an unconditional love. It vibrates every aspect of your being, inside and out. It's all permeating, absolutely beautiful. And it is our future when we learn how to think in the fourth and fifth dimensional thought process. But we must learn how to control it in the third. That's why we're here. That's what the third dimension is all about. It's just us learning. It's just us learning how to do this so that we can get better at it, so that we can get to that point. We're not doing anything wrong, but we have to be aware of what we are, and then we need to learn how to use what we have. But we have to see that in the fifth dimension, if I wanted a glass of refreshing, clean water, it would appear in my hand, just like that. And I would drink it, and it would be lovely. But if I had that power, or we all had that power right now, without the ability to control our emotional energy and our thoughts, would there anybody be alive? Because we are not capable at this point of understanding that power, because one, we don't know we possess it. We are very powerful beings. Scary powerful. At first it was scary. Whoa, that's very powerful. But right now we can't do that, because I might think, damn, I wish they'd just die, and they would drop. That's third dimensional consciousness thinking. And luckily, that thought will manifest for a long time, and I'll have the ability to get my emotions under control and do a little self-correction there. Being forgiving of my own self and others, which of course is part of the process. So the fifth dimensional consciousness is instant manifestation, but because there's the lower, middle, and higher, there are beings that are so bright there, I can't even look at them. I can't take it in, it's too bright. And they actually wear robes. They're always appear robed, and they do that for us lower consciousness beings who are still trying to figure it out. Otherwise it's blinding. Blinding, yet beautiful. So I was extraordinarily fortunate to be given what I feel is, I call it a glimpse. I'm going to talk about reality right now. Right now, we don't understand reality as we could. We are just going along with the program. We are taught in America, I'm not American, born, raised, and educated in Canada. I did put 2 kids through the American school system. God, could use some help in that area, because it's very biased, and the history, I learned world history, and what my kids learned for world history, let me tell you, couldn't be further apart. The maps that they show you in this country and the sizes of the continents, not right at all. America is made to look much bigger. Vietnam, you'll see, looks like a little dot. Totally incorrect. They did that to psychologically make people in America feel like they were the most powerful, most superior people on the country, on the planet. These are little bits of manipulation that they sneak in. All kinds through the educational system, but I don't want to dare I digress. Because ultimately, it's up to us to educate ourselves. But in our way of thinking here in the United States of America, I believe it goes something like this. America is a capitalist country. Capital is money. It means money first. People and their thoughts and everything is secondary. That's a fact. They call themselves a capitalist country and make any other country that is for the people, such as society or a social country, that's a bad thing. Because we don't understand the definitions of these words. They throw it out, we eat it. Then they tell you, you better get a good education, so their education, so that you can get a good job, so that you can buy a big house. You have a fancy car. And this makes you what? Successful, superior, you got it. Look at everybody, look at me. It's not about that, all right? Of course, the neocortex of the brain and the R factor of the brain are our survival modes, and we have human needs. We need to eat. We need to have money. That's our currency right now. These things need to happen, but they don't need to be the priority. I guarantee you, you will still eat. You will still seek shelter. You will still have clothing. But if you just tone it down, these things will fall into place naturally, and all that other time, you're going to open your mind to the ability of who you are, who we are as individuals, and gain that self-acceptance. And our reality makes it very difficult for us to do that because we are on what I like to call the rat race. And the more energy we put into that, the more we feed the machine. And the machine is continuously suppressing us. And this is not serving our highest purpose. So it's very simple. We think appropriately, third dimensionally, understanding our thoughts have power or weight, that they go someplace, understanding that even our bad thoughts aren't bad. There are no negative thoughts. We have the opportunity to fix them. And that when we gain this self-acceptance, this love, we can surely just be. And everybody would feel the same way. Now, boom, right into the fourth dimension. Fourth dimension, we're going to screw up. I can tell you right now. That's what we do. Then we get, look, at the motto in my family is, you get knocked down 7 times, just get up 8. That's how you do it. Get knocked down 8 times, you can see where this is going. That's what you do. Because you have to crawl before you walk, and you've got to walk before you run, and you have to run before you fly. And we will fly. I've seen it. It's all in the mind. It's just transferring of energy. We can manipulate physics. There's nothing in this reality right now is really solid. That's not. You all know that those are just atoms slowed down. You all learned that in 9th grade science, right? Right? So this isn't even what appears to be, maybe not. Oh. All right, I learned in 5th grade science. I just thought you guys might have had it by 9th. Yeah, you do have to learn that stuff on your own. So all of this means that we are having awakening. A spiritual awakening has begun. We desire our human potential to unfold. Desire is a very key word. In the esoteric belief system, it says everything begins with desire. That's the catalyst to thought. The catalyst to thought, then manifestation. We desire to feel deeply rooted in our planet, yet cosmically connected. Don't we all want to be very well grounded like a tree, but forever aspiring unto the light? Isn't that what we're doing during this awakening process? Isn't that what it's all about? We desire to understand. But if there's nobody telling us what it is we need to understand, all of the different geographical areas and the different cultures, for culture, just let me digress for a second. Last night in my presentation, I talked about extraterrestrial abduction having a geographical and a cultural influence. It's very difficult for researchers like myself to get the facts right because we have to take those two things into consideration. So it's all the way a person expresses himself, so we have to be able to read between the lines. So my son came last night, and we went out for dinner, and he said, "Mom, you said culture." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, what's a culture?" I said, "It's a set of beliefs sometimes deeply attached into our core belief system that dictates our community and how we act. He said, yes and no. I said, what's the no? He said, Mom, a culture is something they put in a petri dish so that they can examine it. It's an experiment. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's my boy. That's my boy. He's right, okay? Learn from everyone. My boy set me straight. He's absolutely correct. This is an experiment. We are being observed. We are watching. And even though we do have cultural differences, they too are an illusion, because when it comes down to it, we all want the same thing, all that. But we also want to love our partners freely. I want a safe place to raise our children, our grandchildren. We want fresh, healthy food with clean skies and clean water, and we want to take care of our garden planet. We all want freedom, and we all want security. We can have it. We can have it. But we have to think correctly. It's all in the mind. We are the masters of our domain. We're given this opportunity to rise up, allow our consciousness to expand. To get to a consciousness expansion through the awakening process, you have to evaluate your reality, okay? Reality is much bigger than what it is. But the very second, the very moment that you begin to see that there's more to reality than you were taught, maybe you saw a ghost, maybe you saw a UFO, maybe you had an extraterrestrial experience, maybe you saw a jinn, maybe you just perceived something from your peripheral vision, or you saw a little shadow entity peeking around the corner. That is an opportunity for you to go, oh, is that real or is it not real? It's real. That means your reality is bigger. The second that you can accept the fact that reality is larger than it is, and anyone who has done that, their reality is different from your neighbors who might have no experiences at all. Your two realities on the same planet at the same time are different. Our reality encompasses a much larger set of beings, and when you can do that, you can begin to take the next step, which is an expanded consciousness. That expansion, it feels like an expansion, and I think that's why they use the word. For me, myself, I'll only tell you my firsthand experience, it felt like there were light years just between my eyes, and that I could spread through the universe. And I did go to look at my body, and it was stars and planets. And I realized I didn't have a body anymore, which is when I went, still Laurie. How is that? I was young. That started for me when I was in my 20s. But at that moment, I felt as if there was light years between my eyes, and I could feel an expansion in my own mind. And then I was given a little bit of information on how to think correctly. Thinking creates our reality too, and if we change how we think, we change our reality. And if we all do it together, we change the collective conscious, and when we do that, we will easily shift. For those that don't shift, I'm going to tell you that their bodies will fall, but their consciousness or their soul will not. When you see a ghost, that's what it'll be. We'll be in the fourth dimension. What we'll see are the discarnate entities of third dimensional thought. Those will be your ghosts. They're going to be trapped in the secondary time loop. We've gone through multiple changes already, and not everybody is able to do it. Again, they'll have their chance. They'll have their chance because time is on our side. Time is on our side. We got that much right. For them it is. For the majority of the people that are moving through any awakening process, the time is now to change your thoughts. It's not that easy. It's simple. It's very simple, but it's not that easy. You have to be conscious of your own self, conscious of what enters your mind, and then control what comes out of your mouth. We just keep sticking our feet in our mouth. We try as a species, we try, but without the proper guidelines, how many? 5 minutes? Okay, wow. We do try. Do you want to get to something else that's... So fifth dimension, I'll just say quickly because they're just telling me I'm done, is all about pure consciousness, pure being. And we all have this opportunity to move in there, change your mind, change your reality. When your reality changes, your consciousness expands. You can't change your reality till you have total self-acceptance. You can love the good, the bad, the ugly in you. You can do it in anyone. Embrace it, forgive. Start from that perspective of self-love, because you can't love somebody else until you can love yourself. And then we will be able to make this next jump together as a whole and create the world that we truly do desire, one that we rule. So they're cutting me off, so if anybody has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to take them over the next 2.5 minutes. No? Sure. No, go ahead and ask a question. Right. It's meditation. I'm a huge advocate, and I say to you, learn to meditate, because we're right back to that. Because that way you'll be able to control your mind. And if you're not controlling your mind, there is a good chance that somebody else is. Meditation is the actual first step in learning how to control your mind. And it's not as hard as people think. It's actually quite easy. People try too hard. Again, it's a gentle easing of the mind, just allowing things to transpire as opposed to pushing it. Meditation. Any other questions? Yeah? You can't make anybody feel anything. Everybody is responsible for their own feelings. But I understand what you're saying, and I'll say this. Everything that you told your children, they've heard. Their subconscious has received the information. When they get to the point where they can break the programming, they'll have all of the information that you ever gave them. The best thing that you can do for those that don't hear the words is live it. Role model, and they will follow. Role model, and they will follow. Sorry? That's right. Absolutely. Yes?
I wanted to ask about soul. I guess some people call it soul integration.
Mm-hmm.
We're really multidimensional. We can have an enlightened aspect in all of this. And I've been doing soul contract revocations, but what do you do for reclaiming that? And do you have to reclaim all of it, or can you leave the stuff out there, or what?
Well, we are interdimensional beings. That's true. We can exist on multiple planes. I ran into myself once. That was trippy. I was way shinier. I was like, that looks like a better Laurie. I hope I catch up to myself one day. But I believe that in that wherever that aspect of myself is, it'll take care of itself. I can only be in the now, right now, because this is where I am. I can own all of this and work with what I have once I know the truth. So soul integration is not entirely necessary. The soul knows its own path. It knows the flight. It'll take flight. It will. Any other questions? Well then, with that, I would like to thank you all for coming to my workshop. I have another one on Sunday on protocol. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I do. Actually, they're on a table out there. very end, right before the lecture room.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Very interesting.
Oh, thank you. Glad you enjoyed it.
Cynthia Crawford.
Sorry?
You know a lady called Cynthia Crawford?
Yes.
I'm doing a project with her. Mind if I call you?
Oh, I would be thrilled if you did. Jerry, I'll remember. Okay.
Because
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Glad that we got to see you.
Okay. I'll be doing it again Sunday. Oh, thank